Very much, Helen, and thank you so much also to Barnet TUC and Barnet Stand Up to Racism for your help with my campaign. Now, the recent 10% rise in those from BAME communities who have reported racist incidents has not occurred in a social vacuum. They are the product of a deliberate conservative policy to create a socially hostile environment to divide our communities. The British Jewish community has also been a victim of this. Anti-Semitic abuse is at an all-time high, and only last week a rabbi from Stamford Hill was almost murdered in the street. Today I'm here to tell you that as many of us who are British Jews, we stand in solidarity with our BAME sisters and brothers against the racism that you face every day of your lives. Just last weekend we had a 150 strong Jews in solidarity with Black Lives Matter protest in North London. However, the hostile environment has also been created in the political sphere against those of us who are on the left or who campaign against racism. The corporate media's 4-year hounding of Jeremy Corbyn with impunity has injected confidence into the racists of all sorts to come out into the public fora to vilify, to harass and bully us. Labour Party MP Jo Cox paid tragically with her life. If you happen to be both from a BAME community and on the left, not least a woman, this lethal cocktail manifests itself in the most horrendous abuse that Diane has experienced. In February 2020, as a Jew standing for the Labour Party in a council by-election over in Borehamwood, just up the road from Barnet, I too became a victim, following a sustained smear campaign against me at the hands of Hertsmere Conservative Party. This led me and my family to suffer an onslaught of anti-Semitic abuse. During the election campaign, Tory councillors dug up a story from 2015 about a letter that was signed by me and other Jews to the Jewish Chronicle defending Corbyn against accusations that he was anti-Semitic and praising his efforts to bring peace to the Middle East. Within a few hours, Hertsmere Tories were delivering libellous letters to hundreds of voters about me from their candidate Brett Rosehill, insinuating that I was an anti-Semite and that I was a terrorist sympathiser. The day was one of the worst in my life. As I was driving home, I noticed the huge digital billboard outside Elstree and Borehamwood station that's owned by Tory councillor Paul Morris. It beamed out a photograph of me with a red rosette on and the word Hezbollah written on it. In full view of thousands of rush hour commuters. It was turning my life into a nightmare. Meanwhile, I was receiving emails at my work account, an anonymous message as well, purportedly from another Tory councillor. Chillingly, it said I was paying the price, and it also then went on to mention my unborn baby. Meanwhile, with the Tory councillors' hate continued on public Borehamwood and Jewish Facebook pages. One Tory councillor labelled me the worst anti-Semite, that's to say worse than Adolf Hitler. Another used anti-Semitic tropes, accusing me and left-wing Jews of being self-hating Jews who feel guilty about their middle-class privilege. One of my campaign team overheard a Tory canvasser describing me as a disgusting Jew. Perhaps, buoyed by their elected representatives, the online anti-Semitic abuse from the public intensified. I was told to go and die in the gas chambers. I was referred to as a Jew-hating Jewish cunt, a lying Nazi, and that I have no Jewish soul. My mum and my sister received abuse, and my heavily pregnant wife suffered great distress. The police issued us with personal attack alarms and prioritised our home for vigilance. Needless to say, the character assassination worked. From having narrowly missed out in the same ward on a coin toss in the May 2019 local elections, I lost this time by 100 votes. Residents told us that they had changed their mind about voting for me based upon the libellous letter. As someone who's worked and volunteered for the Jewish community my whole life, who attends synagogue, who has relatives in Israel, to be labelled an anti-Semite and a Hezbollah and Hamas supporter so publicly was deeply hurtful. I was ashamed to show my face in my town and in my synagogue. The Tories had tried to disappear me. National media covered the story. The Independent Private Eye, and the front page of the Barnet and Borehamwood Times, as many of you may have read. The outpouring of solidarity was incredible. Hundreds of strangers contacted me or donated to my legal costs to fight the defamation campaign that I had launched. Several Labour MPs and campaign groups sent support. The Lib Dems and the Greens joined Labour to issue a solidarity statement locally. The Jewish community rallied around, starting with left-wing Jewish organisations, then rabbis, and then the Board of Deputies of British Jews. Heartsmere Conservatives were left isolated. I reported them to the police for incitement to racial hatred and to the Electoral Commission, and my lawyers, Carter Ruck, wrote to those councillors responsible, outlining the libel case. But this is the third election campaign running that the local Tories have defamed our Jewish candidates, having adopted similar tactics against our parliamentary candidate Holly Carr-Weiss, who many of you know, and against our group leader Jeremy Newmark last year. The National Labour Party has been very supportive. Former General Secretary Jenny Formby wrote to Tory HQ to demand that these attacks on me and on our Jewish candidates stop. The Tories must never be allowed to incite hatred against our Jewish candidates again. Now, I just want to end by saying this. There was a street in the ward that I stood in called Robeson Way. The Tories targeted it to deliver their libellous letters. Named after Paul Robeson, the African-American actor and civil rights campaigner who was blacklisted in the 1950s McCarthyism witch hunt. But many Jews campaigned to support him at the time, and he famously released a song in Yiddish to commemorate the Jewish resistance to the Nazis in the Warsaw Ghetto uprisings. It's in this tradition of Jewish and black unity that we must work together with our allies to overcome the social and political hostile environment that we are suffering under. As Jews, we are ready to stand up and demand that black lives matter.